Yeah. I don't think so. is my first answer to that. I think the type of counsellor you are is dependent on age, gender, life experience, generation, where you were born. I think so many things can influence, because you have to remember that I'm a counsellor, but I'm also very different as a person to some of the other counsellors at number 5, and that's for so many reasons. So I think already your experience as a client with counselling is going to be very different, just based on the person's difference. And then we'll add on the different training. we do different trainings. We're taught by different lecturers. There are different things called modalities, which are like the type of theory people learn before becoming a therapist, and all those things then also add a difference in the way of working. So I think that one is very simply, no, all counselling isn't the same, which is an important thing to hold in mind, because it can be so easy, especially in something like counselling, to think that if you have a poor experience, that's what it's going to be like. And I can empathise with that so much, because it's so hard to express yourself and to share and to feel comfortable with someone, and then if you do that and then you have a bad response, to think counselling is all like that. Fair enough. I can get, but I hope in this we can at least encourage that. You may have had a bad experience, but that's not to say all experiences will be like that, and that they can be different, and I think likely to be different based on the things I said.
I've also found some people who have been to see same counsellors as me, they've had a bad experience with them, but I've had a good experience with them, and it depends on who.
I think that's another fair point. I think as a counsellor, that this idea that I could see everyone is just unrealistic.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not limitless in my ability to be a counsellor, and I think there will be people that maybe have a better experience with me, and there are people that don't have as good experience, and there are lots of reasons for that. So I think that's fair.
And then counselling, it isn't just like the movies, is it? It's very different. You don't just lay on a couch and...
No, I've never had a client lay on a sofa or a couch, although I'd like to experience what that would be like. But no, I think that is a type of therapy, usually in psychoanalysis, that is might be what's done, but that is a small branch of the field. I think largely a lot of the counselling may be done in a similar way to this, and sort of 2 chairs arranged in some sort of way. Lots of counselling is done through activity. I know counsellors that play Uno with their clients, particularly young people play Uno and they have a session in that way. I know others that use Santre activities, and maybe different, and like drama therapy in that sense. So I think the range of what's possible really is huge. I remember on our training, one of the things we were told very early on is that our ability to play will be important as a counsellor, our own creativity. So so there is a small part of the field where counselling might undergo that way, but I think it really is a minority, in the vast majority it isn't like that. Did you lay on a bed? No.
It's more like this.
Yeah.
And then there's always a thing that not many people go to counselling, and that it's only for set people and for set problems.
I'm not sure what set problems define the need for someone to go counselling. I think my belief is that it can be for everyone, and I think that everyone would benefit from good counselling. And I use good in particular because, like you said, for example, you had a good experience with your counsellor, but others didn't have a good experience. And fair enough, whatever the reasons are for that, I think they may still benefit from good counselling. Whatever's good for them is what I mean. But I think there is a stigma that you have to have some sort of perhaps mental health condition, maybe something visibly going wrong, or like maybe a big thing, maybe like a death in a family or a friend, like something maybe that can be seen and where the rest of your world might go, fair enough. And I think that's sad that if that's the only way you can access this type of support, this type of experience. But I understand that it's there. What do you think about that question?
I mean, yeah, I got my counselling through school, so it was obviously someone referred me to go and have it, and I think that's the way that it's kind of done. It's not like it's open for people to kind of just go and have a talk, and it is quite sad because sometimes you just need to go and talk to someone, and you end up not having that person to be able to go and do because of the stigma that surrounds it.
I'm going to ask a big question here, so answer whatever you like, but what do you think about that stigma that's around it?
I think it's hard. I don't like it, but then you always have a stigma that surrounds something, and I think it's really hard to take away that stigma, especially with such young groups of people, because they grow up hearing it, and unless you can cut it out from such a young age, it's always going to be there.
I think it's so complex why there might be a stigma, and I imagine maybe some of the stigma that you may have experienced might be similar to some of mine, and then also different for lots of reasons. So that's why I say it's a big question. It's tricky.
I see it with my age group. I see it with my younger brother's age group, and then you see it with like older people as well. And it's so different, but yet it's the same stigma.
Yeah, no, and that stigma. Do you think it's a not wanting to ask for help, or what it may look like if you ask for help?
Yeah, and then it's more like people treated differently because they act differently, and then they don't want to go ask for help because they're already being treated differently, and they don't want to be treated any differently more than they are. And then it's hard to sort of break that cycle that just goes round.
I was doing some research for my dissertation, and when I was finishing it, there was this idea that one of the fears about accessing help is the response you'll get in your community. Like what you're saying, that for example, if I go get help and now everyone knows that I'm getting help, that I'll be treated differently. And it feels, I'm thinking about young people, whatever they're already going through, now to add that on as well, that you might get treated differently, and normally worse, worsely as well. It's a huge weight to have to carry.
Yeah. I was quite lucky, but I think other people have it tougher. It's hard. Yeah. My GP will know that I'm having counselling is another common.
So no, not necessarily. I think that as a young person as well, when you're in school and everything is monitored and assessed, and you know what grade you got that day and you know where you were at that day, I think there's perhaps this idea that lots of people will find out, and of course maybe for some young people there's that fear if it's on their GP records, it's a permanent known record for a long time. It's not mandatory that your GP knows that you have counselling. For example, if a client wanted their GP to know, I work with clients who have a really good relationship with their GP, and wanted the GP to know that they were getting more support, that might be an example where the GP knows. But it's not saying that if you come now, with number 5, we're now going to tell your GP just because you're in counselling. There might be examples, but it's not a mandatory thing.
Okay.